Well, the Hawks are calling for cable theft to be declared a form of economic sabotage, that is. The Gauteng Hawks head says that this would help to bring down the ever-rising incidents of theft and sabotage as far as the electricity grid is concerned. Now, one can get up to 30 years in prison for crimes associated with economic sabotage. Let's get more on this now. Take you to that Energy Indaba being hosted in Johannesburg. Bring in our reporter Malungelo Booi. Malu, what is the case that's been made for the declaration of cable theft as a broader crime of economic sabotage?
What we've heard from law enforcement authorities that made presentations this morning in this Indaba is that cable theft and vandalism of electricity infrastructure is on the rise, especially here in Gauteng, and that on its own then disrupts electricity supply, not only, for businesses, but also for residents in general. And we've heard from the Hawks that there are special teams that have actually been set up in the 5 regions of Gauteng to specifically deal with this particular issue. And of course, Tembekile, what is becoming clear, at least from what we've heard from law enforcement officials that made presentations this morning in this Indaba, is that Gauteng is the hub of this cable theft and also the vandalism of infrastructure. What do I mean by that, Tembe? We've heard that some of the cable theft and some of the infrastructure that's actually been stolen or scrap metal that's been stolen in other provinces and also in other parts of the African continent actually comes here to Johannesburg, where it's melted and then it's transported or shipped to other parts of the world where it's actually sold. We've heard then from the police saying that City Power as well as Eskom need to play a part in this regard and making sure that they vet some of their employees who work with this infrastructure, because they're saying that they found that some of these syndicates, in fact, work with some people internally in these organizations. Tembi?
So given that then, Malu, the concern becomes about if you've got people internally at City Power and the broader City of Johannesburg framework who are working with, let's say, cable theft syndicates, whatever plan is drafted and officials come up with also risks then being leaked, and in that way the criminals are ever ahead of law enforcement and the city, no?
And that's what we're hearing, actually, Tembi, that these syndicates or criminals are actually quite sophisticated and are actually quite advanced. But we've heard, though, from City Power saying that one of the things that they're trying to, that they're working on installing, in fact, is installing cameras in some of their infrastructure. I just want us to listen to the gentleman from the City Power when he was asked about that particular issue.
Now, Gauteng is basically the hub. Doesn't matter where the vandalism will take place, the sabotage will take place. This is the marketplace. And this is basically the centralized hub where most of the copper from neighboring provinces, neighboring countries will be brought in. And then it will be melted in one of the refineries, then basically exported. And I can assure you, the Hawks is sitting with numerous cases at a very high level where we're dealing with really the top notch of the second-hand goods recycling industry. And paying these big fines, 7 million and 10 million to SARS or to the courts, is basically done at the blink of an eye. It just comes as cost of doing business. So unfortunately, as I said, the profits for these criminal enterprises is so vast, paying this is of no consequence.
We are also looking at micro-dotting in terms of, spraying that into our network, as well as the RFID, which will be able to track our devices once maybe they've been uprooted and they've been taken somewhere. But obviously, that will form part of our research and development agenda, obviously emanating from this particular conference, to say what is it which we are taking, which we could then be able to implement. I think quite quickly, Councillor, in terms of the partnership with the communities, that actually talked to the core of our security strategy with City Power, and the MMC SAN is in the forefront in terms of that particular engagement, and we already have a couple of businesses and communities who voluntarily have actually taken up our network. They've installed alarms and the likes, and which we really appreciate. So that is actually at the core of our strategy, and we'll be rolling that going forward. So the drone capacity, I had an engagement at City Power last week. Our team that is responsible for the overhead transmission lines in terms of inspections and the likes, they are also procuring such a service, obviously on a contracting basis, but we had an engagement that security will also tap into that so that then we can assist the essential infrastructure task teams that have been established by the Provincial Commissioner of the Police.
That's Sergeant Tale there, Tembi. He works for City Power. Part of what he said is that City Power intends, in fact, or is looking at the issue of doting their infrastructure, but also having drones in some of their infrastructure in order to curb the problem of cable theft and vandalism of its infrastructure. We've also heard, though, that the JMPD will actually be introducing about 200 JMPD officers that will work with the South African Police Service to help them deal with the issue of cable theft and vandalism of their electricity infrastructure in the city of Johannesburg. Tembi?
Malu, for now, thank you very much for that. Malungelo Booi reporting for us on that Johannesburg Energy Indaba.